On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Gary Tsao. He is the owner of Chief Analytics Officer Advisory LLC, where he is an advisory firm. He provides, information, support, analytics help towards all the people in that community. He can go to that a little bit more himself. But the episode itself, we're going to be talking about proactive and reactive states of data, defensive, offensive. Gary's got a fantastic background. He's done this at various organizations and helps others do it. So I thought he'd be perfect to talk about this. Gary, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Amir. It's nice to be here. To describe myself, previously for the 26 years, I've been an analytics officer leader for 8 organizations across industries, mostly as the serial founder of internal analytics startups. So my experience includes credit card banking, credit lending, consumer marketing, credit bureau, healthcare insurance, healthcare distribution, transportation, consumable distribution, hospital, retail, and e-commerce as a mouthful. But I also have lived many different states. I lived in Louisiana, Arkansas, Delaware, Virginia, California, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Now I live in the metro Cleveland area. That's my background, and I'm happy to be here. And then Amir can ask me any questions.
Yeah, so the episode itself, we're going to be talking about defensive and offensive strategy, the data value within both contexts. Because I think it's interesting, because I think a lot of times you have companies that view data and reporting, and they misunderstand what they have, and then you have people that think they're offensive, and that they think it's a revenue generation, but they treat it as though it's still reporting. So I think we have, and again, we talked about productizing of data. There's a lot of things in there that we talk about, and maybe at the highest level, just as a starting point, where we're talking about unlocking data value, from a defensive and offensive standpoint. What is the ultimate goal? Like, we want to all unlock value in data. What does that really actually mean? How does that benefit people? Because it sounds great, but unlocking anything, it sounds like it's expensive during the process as well.
Yes, if you think about the investment and ROI, return on investment, depending on your industry, if you are in commercialization, data analytics solution, problem-solving industry, then offensive strategy for using data is the right approach. You can use data analytics technology, processes, and whatever you can have in terms of resource to create revenue, grow the company's revenue and profitability. So I did that at a company called IXI Corporation. Later became part of Equifax. It was a privately owned company by PE investors. I was there for 5 years, and the accomplishment there was with a team of about 10 people out of the 120 people company. We grew the revenue from $20 million to $40 million in 5 years during the economic recession for the U.S. economy. So that company used data and analytics, econometrics models, statistical models, technology to truly create commercial products such as consumer household wealth indicators, wealth 360, incomes 360, wealth complete, and discretionary spending index. Those products actually get revenue from our customers in financial service industries, from insurance companies, and from marketing companies. So that's offensive strategy. Defensive strategy, most organizations are using data as defensive strategy, meaning to improve the internal decision-making processes, to reduce cost, to really bring the company to be more competitive in the marketplace. Because if you don't use data as the right resource to make decisions faster, with higher confidence, with higher accuracy, with more repeatable, scalable solutions or processes, then you are falling behind, and then you will not be as competitive in the marketplace as you should be. So that's the difference between offensive and defensive. For defensive, generally, it's for allocating resources to the higher ROI activities. For example, marketing, right? So you have, let's say, $10 million marketing budget. How do you use those $10 million? how do you measure the ROI or the, let's say, response of your marketing offers? And if they respond, how much business volume are they going to bring to you? Then you can actually measure response rate and then the volume, as well as in the future risk factor. For example, if it's a consumer lending, you may have delinquencies and default and bankruptcy. How do you measure responsiveness and volume you bring into the organization, and also in the future the risk control factor? So those can be measured. And for example, if you are really trying to set up warehouse locations in a new marketplace, where do you want to put it? You want to be in a place where it's closer to your customers, and then you can reduce your cost and also have closer access to your customers and let's say partners or vendors. So that's how do you do that? Then you have to have all the data and then make sure that you have the optimized location and recommended to invest in a facility.
Let me ask you a question there, because I'm listening to you, and it almost sounds to me, as we're talking about, there's just, opening up a warehouse or an office location. It sounds to me, when we're talking about defensive, offensive, sometimes it's really more about data maturity. Because if in that scenario where I'm looking at, where I want to place the warehouse optimal, if I have minimal data points, well, I'm going to produce a very minimal results set, and I'm going to be able to look at some of the financial costs and the variables that I have at my disposal. If I'm more mature along data maturity fundamentals, I've captured more data points, I have a lot more metadata, a lot of that information to understand my geographic dynamics better, then obviously that volume of data might lend itself well to offensive data strategies of maybe a machine learning application on top that's been learning or understanding, or maybe some advanced analytics that could be helping us. But if I don't have that data, I don't have it captured, I have no other option. Is part of what we're talking about when we look at offensive and defensive really the state of maturity of an org? Or is it hey, that warehouse example you provided, that's great. My org makes that decision once a year. I don't need to capture that data. It doesn't matter. We're going to use a little bit less rigorous insights, but we'll still make a good decision.
So, Amir, it's not about making special arrangement to enable data analytics. It's about your normal business workflow, right? So you do have generally data for sales activities, customer contact, and also you have the volume. So based on that information, it's sufficient for us to analyze the pattern and say, okay, we have this many customers, or this many prospects, and then we know their locations are. So you don't have to specifically prepare data for analytics, but rather the data is already collected. You don't have to collect them separately. On the product side, what products are sold to customers, and what price, and what volume, what frequency, how the delivery patterns are. Those data are already in your operational data transaction systems. Right? So it's just a matter of unlocking the value that you have already collected and harvested in a vault, in a storage area. But it takes time for you to extract the data, organize the data, and then use data in a meaningful way. So data is not going to slow you down, but rather, if you use it the right way, it's going to accelerate the decision making. For example, you say, okay, I only make the decision once a year, once in every few years. Fine, but there are many other use cases. For example, who should you talk to customers in terms of prospect? So if you have 10 salespeople, but you have tens of thousands of prospects, who do you talk to? Are you going to use in-person visit on site? Or are you going to use email? Are you going to use a piece of mail? Or are you going to use, let's say, roadside kind of like advertising signage? Or are you going to use radio or let's say internet, YouTube? Or do you want to use commercial TV or let's say Amazon Prime or whatever other systems along with the advertising or Google or whatever? Yes, there is a way to measure And as long as you have the KPI to measure the effectiveness of success and end goal, you can do better with those KPIs.
So maybe I guess you mentioned you're capturing that data. So I guess the first step to be able to, and I guess maybe the real question is transitioning from defensive to offensive. Is it making the decision of earlier on or at some point deciding what data should be captured because there's intent to want to use the data in an offensive capability, or is it a different strategy? Is it hey, you know what, we have the data we have, how can we, as you said, unlock it?
Generally speaking, if you have the end goal in mind, then it could become more offensive, meaning that you can be not offensive, but more like a proactive. So you can provide useful guidance to the system design and workflow process in the beginning. So before you even get started, you actually have an idea what data you want to collect. In addition to the transactions, for example, if you need to have customer feedback, is that built in the initial stage? Maybe not, but you can add it. And then it's an afterthought. But if you have that in the beginning, for example, customer feedback is so important, customers will rate your product, then that has to be natively built within the process initially. So it's about a data architecture design, it's about the work process, it's about the entire business operational model. So it's not about a separate function that's really thinking about, okay, it's a lot of investment and it's a lot of separate additional effort. It's like air we breathe in or water we drink. It's weaved into your daily operational processes.
Interesting. I guess if you're a company that you're sitting there, you have reports, you have teams of analysts, you're seeing these every morning, and you're sitting there thinking, well, I'd certainly like to use this, my data as a in an offensive fashion. I want it to be more revenue generating. Where does a company like that start? Because obviously, they are probably seeing the reports as they need. They're still making the business decisions, but they're thinking, hey, we can actually potentially impact revenue. Where do you start in that case?
Yeah, starting point generally is organization's strategic priorities, right? So why the organization exists, what is their mission, what is the future vision, where they want to be, where they are, where they came from, and then how do they prioritize their strategic priorities and then allocate their limited resources in terms of people, let's say money and time. So to be proactive, I would say if you look at the revenue generating activities, that will be the easiest way to be more, let's say, offensive. That way you can clearly tie your activities to the revenue generation or profitability. But many organizations are, the data analytics organizations are under IT or reporting to CIO. That's in many organizations, not all of them, but so that will treat the data analytics function as an IT branch that is more defensive, it's more expensive, it's more like a cost side. So that's why it's becoming defensive, and then it's becoming a defensive nature. But if you set up the data analytics organization in a neutral way, not part of IT, not part of sales or revenue generating, but somewhere in the middle, to truly integrate technology, process, data, processes, and people, organizational core competencies, then data analytics organizations' full potential could be unlocked, right? For example, if I want to truly establish data analytics in an organization, I want to closely tie our activities to revenue generation, or at least tie to clear expense reduction side, so that way you can measure. So I've, based on my 26 years experience at 8 organizations, I've seen a pattern. The pattern is that to truly make data analytics journey a successful one, at least less painful, there are three conditions. Number one is to have the CEO and the board of directors full commitment and advocacy. They have to be visible, they have to be vocal, they have to say, okay, to the entire organization, enterprise, data analytics is going to be a strategic priority for all of us. We're going to invest, we're going to commit, and then it's going to be a journey. It's not going to be easy. And a lot of people will probably, their mindset may be challenged, but it's okay. So number one is CEO board commitment. Number two is the business division or a line of business, revenue generating profit and loss owners. Those people, at least a few of them, have to be committed to hold themselves and also data analytics team accountable. Just like almost like in a table, right? So you make decisions on investment. If you have 100 chips for this division president, division leader, and he's saying, I'm willing to invest or put 5 chips to your side and say, Gary or analytics officer, do something up with it, and then let me measure your ROI, measure the impact, and then if you do a good job, I'll double the investment. So that way we can accelerate the maturity and value realization. But if you don't do a good job, deliver value in the next 1 year, then I'm going to take back my investment or commitment and endorsement to you. And then I hold you accountable. And also I'm also holding myself accountable in terms of the business line leader and say, if I don't have any skin in the game, then I do not really have any connection to this strategic initiative. This is number 2 factor. Number 3 factor is the collaboration or alliances between data analytics organizations and finance organization and operations organization. The reason why I say finance is that CFO or finance directors and VPs, they have to be fighting alongside with data analytics teams and say, all right, what is the baseline? What is the estimated benefit of your effort or investment? And then let's keep track and measure when you're done, for example, quarterly or semi-annually or annually. And then after we measure it, keep track, and then let's repeat if it's successful. Let's readjust the strategy if it's not successful. So then you can repeat this snowball effect and say, okay, we'll have a baseline, we'll have the estimated benefit, we actually measure the actual benefit, and then we continue to improve. The operational side is that the reason we need to have an operational excellence team work side by side with data analytics team is that they will map out the work process and then say, oh, the process is not optimized. Let's optimize it. And then with the data-enabled decision-making points, let's change people's behavior, change processes, and then truly implement the idea. Because a lot of insights can be valuable. For example, you identified an opportunity for a few $1 million cost-saving opportunities. But how do you implement the change that's needed to truly realize that $3 to $5 million cost saving? That will require the process change, the mindset change, the behavior change. So those are 3 things: CEO, board of directors commitment. Number 2 is the business line leaders commitment, and number 3 is alliance with finance and operations team.
I actually appreciate that. That's actually some great insight into how you look at that. And I guess, you have done this at different companies. You've done a lot of stuff in the healthcare hospital system area. You've done some stuff in retail. Does the vertical matter? Does it, are you looking at your competitors? Obviously, if you're in the healthcare space or you're in the retail space, there's different drivers. Does that make an impact in any of this?
Yes, I would say, depending on the industry, sometimes there are a lot of commonalities across industries. Sometimes some industries have a very high degree of unique, let's say, complexity. For example, hospital, healthcare provider. But for some other industries, for example, retail or financial service, they may have more in common than other industries, than, for example, hospital with other industries, right? So I worked in credit card, banking, student loan, and I worked for marketing, with insurance, with distribution, with retail and finance and distribution. So they are generally easier comparatively to the healthcare provider space, because healthcare is very, let's say, in terms of data analytics, is lagging behind. Across the industries, in terms of data analytics maturity, healthcare provider space is, I would say, the farthest falling behind. Not because anybody did anything wrong, but rather it's just historical reasons, and also very complex in terms of the organizational dynamics and entire systems design, for example, insurance costs and payers, and also clinical outcome and patient experience and all those administrative tasks. So I would say, my individual experience is that 70% of the things, 50 to 70% of the things are common across industries, but then 30% to 50% could be industry specific. So, for example, I worked across different industries and I learned a lot, but I do see commonalities. But when I came from distribution industry to healthcare provider space, there's a reason why healthcare provider industry very uniquely emphasize the industry specific experience. Of course, non-industry expert can still add value, but to be more effective, you have to have more industry specific experience, or at least perspectives.
I guess when you're looking at defensive, offensive capabilities, and you're trying to, I think you mentioned industry, and you're actually evaluating competitors to benchmark yourself. How in depth can that benchmark get? I mean, can you be looking outside, because obviously you're hearing a chatter in the industry, these people are doing this, you start hearing about AI everything, AI is going to change the world, it's going to make it better, and you start hearing all those different things, you get a sense of FOMO, right? And I think I ask technology leaders about FOMO because it happens in real life, and then it does happen in the workplace. You start hearing things and you start wondering if you're falling behind. Does within the analytics space, does FOMO play a role?
Yes, but I do not think that's the primary motivator, fear of missing out. First of all, there is an interesting organization called International Institute for Analytics. They cover a lot of industries, a lot of organizations, and then they do the benchmark research and say, okay, which industry is more advanced in terms of data analytics maturity than others, right? But within each industry, you also have winners, or leaders and laggers, right? So not because you fear of missing out, then you will do better. But if you don't have that mentality, you will eventually discover where you are standing comparative to your competitors or peers. So the most important thing is really coming back to the organization's mission and their strategic priorities. So if this is important, do it. If it's not important, then you can just put it a slow back burner. The question here about, let's say, missing out on AI or generative AI is that many people in this functional industry, data analytics industry, have said to me that, Gary, what is this hype, right? You've seen the hype cycle, right? We say many decades ago, something has already been there. But of course, the unique difference for the current AI hype is that we cannot deny the traditional, the tremendous impact of the AI to industries, to workforce, to many factors. But the question here is that we should not be distracted or too much overly excited about something new. Before AI becomes AI, labeled as AI, it was called mathematics, economics, statistics. And sometimes we can say, okay, this is the same old wine, but a new bottle with a new label. But the difference here is that we have much more advanced techniques. We have much more powerful computing power. have much more, let's say, advanced users that are testing those new tools. And then it has some amazing advancement. But the question here is that if the organization is not focused on internal ability to truly understand the data as the resource, truly understand the ability to solve problems, to truly understand using data analytics to help you make better decisions, take actions, then whatever tool you have, you will be a very superficial user. You would not know how it works. You would not be let's say, a builder of that capability within your organization. And then, so of course, you can understand how the car is running, and you can be a driver. Okay, I'm just a driver. But then you can be a car mechanic, and then you can change engine oil or change some parts or understand how it works, and then you can proactively prevent any problems from happening or maximize the benefit of the tool that you're using. Or you can completely just, okay, I did not know what happened, and then cause to some issues, and then that will be a risk factor. Some other people, for example, they build the car. So they say, oh, I know exactly how this car wins. They can replace different parts. They can change different components or process. They have that fluency. That's extremely rare to see. But what data analytics professionals, they want to know how it works. And then they also want to know, okay, how can I add my contribution to the process instead of completely becoming let's say, uninformed user of the tool.
Exactly. I think, the follow-up question to that is, I think you answered it right about how you deal with these external noises and keeping focused on what your company needs as a capability. How do you handle the conversation of an executive, a stakeholder, CEO, hearing a lot about these modern technologies, about AI, generative AI, how it's helping companies, how it's shaping industries. They come to you, they're like, hey, this sounds like it could be a thing for us, like, or I'm hearing a lot about it. How do you help them understand how, the dynamic of how it fits in the company's strategy, how it fits within the framework of what you're trying to accomplish?
The conversation starter is that AI, data, analytics, technology are not intimidating topics. When you ask questions, no question is perceived as uninformed or stupid. Nobody should be embarrassed. So let's have a safe conversation. Number one. Number two is that look at, okay, what are you trying to achieve? Look at organization's mission, vision, strategic priority, pain points. Let's start from there and then come down to, okay, what data analytics AI can help you achieve these goals in a more effective way and also in a strategic way, not just tactical way. The number three thing is that with that strategy, then you can come to looking at tangible, specific use cases by revenue generating activities or by cost cutting activities or by efficiency or by expanding to new adjacent marketplace or new products. So those issues will be naturally leading to a discussion of, okay, what do we have in terms of data resources? What technology do we use? What kind of process should we look at? What is the ROI? And then do we need to build an internal team, or do we need to hire some consultant, or do we need to completely outsource the data analytics function? All those options are on the table. There's no right or wrong answer, but rather the right answer for the organization or for the situation, for the challenges you have in your hand. One biggest confusing point for CEOs and boards is that they commingle a lot of things, use things interchangeably without knowing the difference. So, for example, when we say technology, IT, when we say data, when we say analytics, they put them together as, interchangeably. Oh, data people is analytics people is IT people. Oh, okay, all the same. No, IT is different from data professional. Data professional is different from analytics professional. Very rare you will see people as expert across those three domains. IT or technology people, data people, analytics people. Technology people are truly focused on technology and tools and infrastructure and all those operational side of it, right? Enable people to really work better. Data people are more focused on data as a strategic resource. Manage data proactively so that way in the future you can actually use them effectively. Data people like supply chain. So they harvest something from the field or farm, and then they will put them in warehouse, they will sort them out, and they will package them, and then they will deliver to the retail store. Analytics people are almost like retail professionals. So they or the restaurant chef and then also the waiters, they will serve a specific customer's need in a decision-making context. So they are more problem-solving focused, and they are less concerned about data quality or technology that will enable them to deliver value. So they are the end user. So ideally, analytics people should be properly served by data people. Data people should be properly served by technology people who will run operational environment. And then, of course, they can also integrate and find the synergy across those three functions. But if you commingle them and you see they are the same, then you miss the point. So the role, the function of chief data analytics officer's role is to truly focus on data and analytics, but partner with technology people.
I love it, Gary. I could have you keep talking about this subject. I think we could drill into endless pivots within this, but I know you got to get back to your day, and I really appreciate you being on and sharing. I guess biggest question is, if someone wants to follow up with you, obviously to pick your mind on anything you've mentioned, continue the discussion, what is a good way of getting hold of you?
I'm actively on LinkedIn, and I recently started my own solo practice to focus on advisory service for CEOs and boards, as well as supporting chief data officers as an available resource to function as a fractional, interim or part-time chief data analytics officer. So LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thanks again for being on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. That's it for the episode. Back again, different guest, different topic. Until then, if you found the podcast useful, share it with somebody else that might also like, subscribe, comment, give me some feedback on what you'd like to see more of, less of, any feedback would be great. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.